And I'm back. First thing to do, because these have been banging around a lot, I have measured to make sure diagonally, horizontally, vertically, make sure they're not out of round. If they've been hammered a lot with bearings shot the way they were, the slamming up and down can make these oval, and you bolt them together without the bearing, measure, but they are perfectly round. So that's step one that you do, just to make sure that your con rods are not damaged. And in my case, luckily enough, they're not, so we don't need to replace them, because that would have been a pain in the ass to have to replace them, because then the pistons have to come out. So all good, they're not out of round. So I'll go and I've checked this one, which is the worst, but I'll double check all of them to make sure all of them. So I recommend you check all of them for out of roundness, and then we'll go on to the next step. Okay, now they've all been checked for out of roundness. First, what I want to do is lay the crankshaft in, so that all the connecting rods can be reconnected. I will go and pop the new mains in. They only needed a polish, so these are standard size. You basically just push them in by hand. Always make sure the oil holes and the locating tabs line up, like so. And don't forget to put the thrust bearings back in. I forget which one goes on the top. Yeah, other way around. These look fine, so I'm not replacing those. So oil. Sure, I've got some oil here somewhere. Lots of auto trains. Anyway, put some oil on there to keep it in place. Put some oil on this surface. Then you clean the machining oil of the crankshaft, pre-oil the bearings, and carefully lay it in. Careful not to scratch any of the freshly machined surfaces with these sharp edges. Just be very careful putting it in. And when you're moving it around to line these up, be extra careful you don't do any damage. Anyway, I'm going to oil this up, stick it against the surface, and I'm going to oil these when I find some oil, and I'll show you when I lay it in there. Alright, just a tip. In the old days, I always used something called motor honey, which is supposed to thicken your oil and make your car smoke less, but that's what I learned from a mechanic to use to assemble motor honey. Now they've got engine assembly lube. I couldn't find it on the shelf, the old motor honey. So moly graphite on it. So with other words, you can take your time. Normal engine oil, it would go on there. If you're doing it all in one day, no problem. But I may get sick and I may not be able to get to it for a week. And even in a week, the old motor honey would squeeze out and maybe even dry up a bit. But apparently this stuff will stay on there a long time. So well recommended to use a good sticky lubricant, a long lasting lubricant to assemble an engine. So to say, and that will hold the thrust bearing in place quite nicely. A bit on each surface. Give it a wipe. Don't be stingy with it. I guess it's the graphite that's in there that will keep lubricating it. Alright, she's ready for the crank now. I'm going to go and give that a clean and I'll turn the camera back on. Something you may want to do, which I just remembered I should do, while it's cleaning the crank, blow out the oil galleries. There may just be a bit of metal stuck in there from the machining or from the original damage that was done. I've also removed the bearing caps back out of the engine, and I'm also going to blow out the oil galleries in the engine. So I just want to make sure there's no metal shavings left behind. So yeah, just a small tip. I've already sprayed degreaser into these. Notice that the mains are cross drilled. I wish they'd done that for these big ends too. Then apply assembly lube liberally to each bearing, because surface rust sets in no time at all. Next I'll blow this out and we'll get back to putting the crank in. Okay. Laying the crank in, it's nice if you have two people here. I had my wife lift up one of the conrods, because only one was touching as I was laying it in, so that one was lifted up. I'm not going to take it out again to show you how to do it. I forget to turn the camera on, so but she's in there, back at home. Now it's a matter of reconnecting the conrod, putting the bearings in and flexi gauging them, making sure the tolerances are correct. I'll show you how to do that a bit later on. But first, not a well man, I am going to, in a bit, going to go and have a break. I'm really pleased with how things are going so far. Okay, I'll start by showing you one and then continue on. So, don't know if you can see this. Move the camera a bit closer. Maybe my wife can hold the camera. Yeah? Maybe if you come around this side. My trusty hand. Here is Conrod number 1 and one of the new shells, which I will just slip in place. And it's not exactly central, so I'll push it out and do it again. Come on. They're very thick because they're 40 thou oversize, which means they're half a millimetre thicker than the factory. Hang on a second. They're so thick they don't even have any flex in them. And they do need to be central. These new ones don't have, oh wow, it's tight. Don't have locating tabs like the old ones did. I'm not sure if I'm a fan of not having locating tabs. I'm not sure at all. Because wouldn't that stop, in my imagination, wouldn't that stop the bearing from spinning, having locating tabs? But hey, I had a hell of a time finding, and I couldn't. Alright, that's central. Okay, now my trusty tube of lube. No, this is not a porno, just normal engine lube, guys. Although I do get excited with a good bit of lube. You don't want too much on there, just as long as it's covered. Then maybe I'll go to the other side as carefully as possible. Pull it up to the crank. And there she is. Okay. Now, where did I put my flexi gauge? Here we go. The green flexi gauge is the closest I could get to measure the right tolerance. Actually, I've got a film clip on for you how to use this. So I don't really need to show you how to do it again. But basically, you lay a bit across here. My wife thinks I should sew it again. Oh well. Remove the staple. Oh, that's a bit messy. Anyway. That's what happens when you're not wearing your glasses. I think it fell down the block. This is all crumbled up. Basically, I don't know if you can see that on there.
It is.
Yeah?
You don't see me.
Anyway.
I saw that.
Then you tighten it up to the right torque, which I'll look up. Then you tighten it up to the right torque and undo it, and then the width that becomes will tell you what the gap is on here. So I will go and put it on, torque it up, and I'll show you what it looks like after I've torqued it. Alright, I've reset my torque wrench to 20 pound because it requires 20 pounds plus a 90-degree turn. Okay, so I'm slowly building up each side to 20 pounds. That was one. Reset. Reset. So that's 20 plus 90 degrees. Like a full circle is 360, a half is 180, so 90 degrees means a quarter of a turn. So this will end up this way, which is quite a bit. Just about there. I don't know why they do that like that. Why not just give the correct pressure? But I think it's called torque to yield. Needs a little bit more. All right, now we undo it. Yeah. All right. So I've undone them. Let's take these babies out. And you have to do this with every one to make sure that your oil clearances are right. I mean, you never know. The grinding guy may have done something wrong. Your bearings may not be what you ordered. So you really have to check every time. And there's a squashed. Is that clear to see? The green.
Sorry.
Yeah, I can see that. There it is.
Yeah.
All right, now I will gap that in millimeters. And to me, it looks like 0.50. Which I'm not really happy with. The reason being, the clearance should be between 0.01 and 0.048, and basically it's at the maximum clearance. It is just acceptable. I may have to give the crank grinder a call and see what he says. Alright. I'll get back to you when I find out what's happening. Okay. Yeah. Having a bit of fun here. Bloopers, they call it. I just called the ground shop. They grind the crankshaft. And he actually ground it to have a 2 thou clearance, which is basically what I've got. So 2 thou is what the factory says is the max. He said it'll be no problem because he said 2 thou is perfect. So, and I've got 2 thou all the way along, so it's all fine. So the reason I rang them, I wanted the confirmation, so if I put the engine in, there's problems, I can say, hey, hang on a minute, mate, you said 2 thou is fine, I've got it on footage, 2 thou, but he said, no, 2 thou is spot on. He said that's what they do, their engines all day. So he basically went for a 2 thou clearance, and that's what's coming up. So it's all good. So I will continue doing all of them, and then I will show you how to get the mains, which is quite a big different job here because we're splitting the block in half. So it's quite a bit different job measuring the mains than it is the big ends, because we don't have bearing caps here. We've got like a bed plate which is there on the table. Alright, I'll do them. Then when they're done, I'll come back and I'll show you how to put the bed plate back on. All good. Now